A question I get asked frequently is how do I stitch a belt keep, leather belt keep, into a belt? Well, I've been asked to make a belt. The opportunity has arisen for me to do a little bit of a video, so I'm going to stitch the belt on. The holes I've covered. Making a belt, it's not difficult, run a slot through. If you have issue with any of this, do let me know. But we'll concentrate on starting off a row stitching. I'm going to do a loop over because that's the style of the belt that's wanted, and that's going to act as the back stitch, and then do a candy twist down the back and then stitch off the other side. So first and foremost, we're going to start off with our first hole, and we'll centre our thread. This is hazel, this leather, 4mm bridle, and I've done the edges in black, so I'm doing black stitches. Now whilst we're centred, I'm just going to run the needle from the back over the top, take up all the slack but not pull it tight, and then the needle from the front over the other side, through the front. Make sure I've not got the needle through the thread, and the important thing that I want to make sure is that these two threads run parallel, they're not crossed over, and then we're going to give that some tension. Let's get rid of the wax, and then we're going to stitch on 2 stitches. So we'll go for our next hole. Now some people ask me about the cross over that I put in, the little knot. Now this is going to take quite a lot of strain, but what I'd like to do is overemphasize the stitch on the belt, that it can be seen, and to do that I'll take it over the top. This adds a small knot, an overhand knot inside, and it helps to grip a little tighter, but equally because the thread's having to pass on the front at a certain angle, it creates a better angle of the stitching and increases that saddle stitch look. So just simply passing over the thread that's gone through of my number 1 needle over the number 1 needle will force it, and if we take up the slack here, we'll see that our thread is in the middle of the loop and at the top, and what will happen is that will force it to the top of the hole whilst it's tying that knot, and there we get that nice rise of a stitch, and that's what we want to do to get these angles much smarter. Now before I do the next stitch, I'm actually going to loosen this off slightly. I've got the clamp nice and tight, so let me just loosen that. And now I'm going to ease the pressure off the leather. I'm going to put in the belt keep where I want it. So what's going to happen is the next stitch here will begin to grip, and the stitch after that will go through the keep. So we'll just work at getting this angle and this position nice and strong, and the one important factor is this needs to be a right angle. In fact, if you bear with me, I shall adjust the camera so you get a better view. Okay, so we've wedged the keep into the leather. I'll just use the end of my ruler as a bit of a right angle tester, and I'm happy that that's at a nice right angle. So whilst the keep's in that position, I'm going to run that next thread through. This is where it all becomes particularly stiff. Again, just lift that over the needle, creating that binding knot and that nice deep angle. And then we'll get the awl and we shall go make the first hole into the keep. So we've gone through nice and smartly. And as ever, it's fun. We don't want to make the hole so big it's easy to run the needles through. But what we do want to do is keep it nice and firm. There we are. A little bit of difficulty. We'll employ the pliers. Just force that issue. So we've made one hole in the keep. Just drop the needles, put the awl down. We'll pick up our ruler again, and we're going to make sure that we've not disturbed that angle. And we have a nice right angle. Lovely. At which point then we shall make our next hole and our next stitch. Now this is the easy side of it. Because what we have here is the open end of the keep. It's when we close it up that people are having difficulty with. I don't suspect this part of it has given anybody any great issue. And the last one of the keep. Some good tension on there, get it nice and firm and strong. And then continue all the way to the end. I can get my needles through. This is strong, heavy leather, and the type of stitch that's on here will ensure that the buckle and the keep stays solid forever. So we'll just continue along the line. I'll video the whole thing. So you can see what's happening. That little jerk that I do with the thread, just make sure that the thread finishes at the top of the holes. As you pull it out, just finish it off with that jerk, and that just pulls it to the top. And that'll make sure that the old stitching is in the right position for the next one. Again, I forgot me, no I didn't, looks like I did it, me loop. Now what I'm going to do is I want this thread back in the middle. I can do a back stitch, cut it off, but what I'm actually going to do is run it down the back of the belt with the other one twisted together. So I am going to go back through the second hole and come out between the two layers of leather. I shall use the pliers for this, and then I shall by eye make sure that thread is nicely in the right position. I should then spin this round. I shall then go through the second hole in, and again make sure that comes out between the two layers of leather. And by eye making sure that they lay flat. Right, what I shall do now is twist. In fact, I've appeared to have gone off camera ever so slightly. Is twist nice and tight these two threads together, ride it in, so that's nice and tight, and then that will sit in between these two threads. I shall make a hole for the second one on both front and back. That will run up the inside and out the back. That will run up the inside and out the front. And there we have this twist. As we put tension, that will sink inside of the two bits of leather. And what I shall do now is turn it back round, put it in the clam, ready for sewing. In fact, I've made a bit of a faux pas there, insofar as I've done the third hole and not the second. We'll just make a hole in the second one, take the thread back through there and put it through the right hole. And now we have the right position. So I shall do a single back stitch, and it will appear on the other side, because of the way that we've done that candy twist on the back, that there's also a single back stitch on that side as well. Give ourselves a nice bit of tension and then come back through the hole normally, not using the awl in the hole with the thread, because we don't want to damage the thread. Just tighten up the old clam. I need a new one. This is baggy and old. It's about 20 years old or so. Now you'll notice from looking at the back that I've gone through this heavily with the pricking iron. And the reason being is I want to mark both bits of leather. It's all measured out. I want the buckle in a certain position. I don't want to mess about with putting the leather together and getting it in slightly the wrong position, because even a slight difference can create an angle and put the line of a belt off. So giving it that extra thump, going through, marking the next piece of leather, whilst not the correct way for everything, it serves a very good purpose on this occasion. Okay, what we're going to do now is going to have a look at where our keep is, and this is where it can begin to get a little technical. So I'm going to bring the belt forward. I'm going to look at where the keep is. We're going to look at putting the keep in from the top, from the other side. So we're going to bend it round and we're going to feed it in, and they will ever so slightly overlap each other, but they are tapered so it will feather in, and you won't get a big bulky bit at the back because it thins off. Now we're going to have a look at that. We've got 1, 2, 3 holes there, 1, 2, 3 holes there, so we're in the right position. So we've got one more hole before we begin to make a mark in that keep. And we're just going to use the scratch awl and just move it over ever so slightly, and that's going to line it up nice and square. So that's in position, and what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch that next line, and this piece will begin to clamp it together. Now obviously we've got to get to our holes now. We know that our first hole is actually just here, so we're going to check, make sure that everything lines up, and then we're going to go through, moving the keep ever so slightly and pushing it back. And this is where it helps when you put the awl through a little bit heavier to mark the back. You know where the hole at the back is going to be, and everything has its place and it all comes together very well. So now what we need to do is just put the awl in, keeping the back of the keep in position. We need to bend the front of the keep out of the way, penetrate it, and make sure that we've gone through our hole in the back. Before we tighten that up, let's have another look and make sure we're in the right position. We're happy with that. And now we need to go right inside the keep, so we need to bend it right out of the way. And go right through to the hole in the back. Pulls the issue with the needle. Now, the front needle put through the keep. We're done with that side, we're now going to stitch from the other side. I'm going to tilt it ever so slightly so I can see into it, look for the next hole, find it, penetrate the leather, and the idea is to go through that without pushing it out of the way too much, but ensuring that we've still got our angle. So we're going with the needle inside the keep through the 3 layers of leather and then coming out the side of the keep there, and then pull that thread tight, and then we've got our one on the end, and we're just going to encourage it back into position. and then we're stitching away from the keep, and there's our third hole, and that's the keep stitched in. So we've got 2 more holes to do to close up that gap. And then we're going to do our loop over, so take the front one over the back, poke it through, take it all the way over but don't do it tight. That'll give you the side that you want for your second needle. So they're running again parallel and not twisted, and then we'll give that some tension. And at which point we will do another back stitch just to make absolutely secure. And again, we'll employ the use of the pliers because that gets a little bit difficult with all the thread and the thickness of leather that's in place. And then one last half stitch through to the back, if we can get there. You can tell by the absolute thickness of that that's not coming out. We'll trim that off nice and snug. Give it a little bit of heat. Job's good, and that's how you stitch in a belt keep. I hope that helps. Enjoy.